Buddhist philosophy of the Four Noble Truths. I'm going to move this. Today, we're specifically going to talk about the first noble truth, the truth of suffering. When you understand the truth of suffering, your whole world will change. You'll start to see things in a much clearer light. You'll start to see why people act the way they do, and you start to understand why you feel the way you do. Now, the truth of suffering is similar to the Four Agreements. Have you ever read that book? I'm sure you have. A lot of people have. I'm cooking bacon, excuse me. The truth of suffering states that we are all suffering in this life inherently. That does not mean that we have to suffer, but we do inherently suffer in this life. We get old, we get sick, we go through breakups, we deal with things that if we had to choose, we probably would choose not to deal with those things. Now, the good news is the Buddha gave us the second noble truth, which is the truth of the cause of suffering. Now, the cause of suffering really comes down to two words: attachment or aversion. Now, bacon is burning. Attachment is simply holding on to any moment so much selfishly that it causes us suffering. Aversion is simply trying to get rid of a moment so much selfishly that it causes us suffering. So the goal in this life is to not suffer, right? Well, in order for us to do that, we must not be attached to anything or hold any aversion towards anything. The reason this connects with that book, The Four Agreements, is because of the first noble truth, the truth of suffering. And that is that everybody around us is also experiencing what I'm talking about. Just as you feel stressed and anxious, other people feel those emotions. And when we truly understand the truth of suffering, that suffering exists inherently, we A, stop taking things so personally, and B, start holding compassion for other people. Because hey, we're all experiencing this. And in fact, when you start to meditate enough, and you start to experience relief from suffering by letting go of that attachment and aversion, everything becomes so much more clear in your world. You start to live more peacefully, more happily. You stop holding on to things and letting things bother you so much. You start to just accept them. And then when you go about in your daily life, you look around and you see that other people are suffering, and you start to want to appease their suffering and help them be liberated from it. And that's kind of why I started this page, actually. Let's talk about